To waste much of our time, let's go straight to the business for today. So what do you understand by a strategic plan? A strategic plan is a document that establishes the directions of an organization. It can be a single page or a field of binded document, depending on the size and the complexity of the operation of the business. Most of the managers, they benefit from this strategic plan because it gives them a vision and direction on how to drive a successful business. That's the plan. But what do you now mean by the planning? As we all know, planning is a process. Like we said, strategic plan is a document, but the strategic planning is a process. Strategic planning is an exercise in gathering the document information about the past, present, and also to have a plan for future of your businesses. Strategic plan helps in determining where you want to go over the next few years. How do you go there? And how to recognize when you have arrived. Because if you have a plan, it will be breaking down into a smaller operational plan that will tailor towards your organization goals and objectives. Having said all this, there are some basic strategic planning process that we must ensure we followed. One of the more common strategic planning approach is basic strategic planning, which uses a triangular approach in seeking aligned strategic agenda items with the tactical reality of the organization. Every organization has their vision, they have their plan. Company A might differ from company B. They may have strategic similarities if they operate in the same line of business. For instance, they are a competitor in the same line of trade. They may have similar because they operate in the same environment. So their SWOTs will determine their mode of differences. Starting from this, we have some steps that involves in basic strategic planning. If you are drawing up a plan, you must follow these particular steps to ensure a successful operation and outcome at the end of the period. One of the first things to identify in this process, this step, one is to identify your mission statement. What is the mission of the same organization we are talking about? By identifying the mission, so it's amazing how many organizations don't take it to so important, because a mission statement is the foundation of all strategic plan work. An effective mission statement describes what the company does, what the service, kind of service or product they provide to their clients, and capture the essence of the company as a whole. That is first. Number two, the company must create a vision for future. What do you mean by vision? So a vision statement needs to be established. This shows the look of how the future will look like. After all, you can't get to where you are going unless you have where to go, or you have where you have in mind to go. Thinking ahead of these 3-5 years or 7 years story to achieve. So what is that your organization has to achieve in that period? So you have to tighten the story in a clearer script sentence and share it among your team for you to establish and achieve that. Number three of these steps is to develop a core value and guiding principle. What do you mean by that? Because a core value and guiding principle are foundational to all your entire organization. It guides the principle that accepted, formed by the business nature, how to relate with your workers, your decision, and set up your priority. So that's that. So the next one, which is number 4 of the step, is to create a long-term goals and SMART objective. When you have a long-term goals and you don't have objective to achieve it, so the plan might not be worthwhile. Because a goal is a general statement which outlines how you want to achieve to meet your mission and vision and address issues you are likely to face. For every goal, it is important to identify strategy to achieve them. Objectives should be SMART. That means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Because when you set up an objective and you don't design a time frame, you might bound not to achieve your aim. So you have to create a long-term goal and also, on the other hand, establish a SMART objective. The next one is to establish an action roadmap with a timeline. What do you mean by roadmap? As we said earlier, we have a vision, we have a mission. We know we are going somewhere. We are going to Lagos. Where are we going in Lagos? How do we channel to Lagos? When we arrive at Lagos, how do we know that we have arrived at Lagos? So when you have a roadmap, and there must be a timeline, because there's no timeline attached. Plan that's supposed to be achieved in 2 years might still be lingering around in the next 4 or 5 years without achieving anything. So those are the things you have to establish a good roadmap and an effective timeline to achieve it. The next one is to build a communication plan. Communication is very vital in every organization because when the chain of that communication breaks, that's the beginning of problem. Communication plan should not be complicated and should be shared within your organization. It is important that time is spent determining the best approach for getting people informed as to what is planned and ensuring that they know the impact. If your plan is printed plan, it shows a map and a level of visual for all sessions involved. It's all about communication and a visual plan created, which needs to be adhered to. The next one is you have to establish an implementation and monitoring plan because this has to do with control. This is an important key to be a successful business person. Every organization has a team, but they might bound to fail because when there's a break in their monitoring process. Consider using highly skilled program manager or director to translate strategy plan into critical or tactical reality. Ensure that the agreements are established and build a strong monitoring process that engage people in open dialogue center around the action that must be taken to be successful. For every plan, it must be broken down into stages. Introductory stage of it, implementation stage, and monitoring stage. At the end, when you provide a monitoring stage of it, there must be an effective control in between. If not, there will be total derail from organizational perspective and their visions. So what is the level of this strategy plan now? Basically, they are categorized into 3. Because what we mean by strategic planning is a long-term or medium-term planning, which involves 3 or 5 to 10 years plan. The strategic planning is an hierarchical activity. Link strategic planning at the top with detailed operational plan at the bottom. Because 2 things involved now, we have the top, we have the bottom. There's a gap in between, so there must be a likely chain that link both the top and the bottom together. So this part of the usefulness and importance of strategic plan. This strategic plan set a framework and guidelines within an organization, which more detailed plan and short-term planning decision can be made. The first stage of it is strategic planning. What does it entail? This involves identifying the objective of a company as a whole. I will plan an effective plan to achieve those objectives, mostly over the long-term period, like 3 to 5, 7, 10 years. It's a long-term plan. When you have a long-term plan, so how do you now devise of achieving this? So it's now brought down to tactical planning. This tactical planning is the one that now break it down into achievable yearly plan, which are typically in form of our annual budget. Because annual budget is prepared on annual basis, which must tailor in the same direction of the corporate strategy plan. And the tactical plan that broke down into a yearly plan must also be subdivided down into an operational plan, which is the third part of it. This detailed planning of an activity, often by like having a supervisor that has some junior staff working under him or her. This supervisor share the workload to various staffs under each category, each department, for the company to achieve the desired objective in due time. So when you haven't sent all this planning, when you have a plan on ground, and it's a fantastic and good plan, and then you don't have control in place, that's the beginning of problem. Having a plan without control is beginning of having a wrong vision to be achieved. What do we mean by control? By conceptualizing, control is a foreseen action, error concept control, where only used when error detected. Control in management includes setting standard. That is what we talk about, establishment of strategic plan. Drawing up a plan is like a standard which needs to be complied, adhered to for companies to achieve their desired objective. From standard to actual results, so there must be an actual activity in between. By doing that, there must be a measuring activity performance. If it's on yearly basis, quarterly basis, or 5 years or 3 years basis, there must be a strict measures for those performance. In other words, to take a corrective actions, not to deviate from our strategic plan. So what are those type of control we have? There are basically 3. We have the feed-forward control, concurrent control, and feedback control. What do you mean by feed-forward control? Feed-forward control is just like a forecast. What has not happened? Which are the things we consider in drawing up our strategic plan? This is used to reduce the effect of measurable disturbances. For instance, for you to drop a plan, you must have vital information about this environment you operate. Likewise, the customer's information, competitor information, market information at large. This will serve as a guide in drawing up your plan, because if you have a wrong plan draw up, definitely you have a wrong output. Next one is the concurrent control. What do you mean by concurrent control? Between the feedback and feed forward, between the plan and the actual, there's a gap there, which is the activity that happened within the period. So this concurrent control take corrective measures in order to monitor the progress of every activity that happened within the period. Why? You have a plan draw, you have a vision or target or objective you want to achieve. How do you perfect not to derail from the process? The concurrent control will take charge of that. You have a policy that you adhere to. The concurrent control, that is the purpose of having an internal control. It's part of the concurrent control. So when every step is being derailed from initial plan, an internal control will draw your attention. This is not the organization policy. This is not the manual set for achieving this. So it is the concurrent control person or an internal control person that will be in charge of monitoring this for organization to achieve their desired objective. The last one is the feedback. As the name implies, is feedback. If the concurrent control is not that effective or not reliable, so the feedback control will be disastrous, because it has happened. It's now become a campaign after the elections. So that which means the deed has been done. So the purpose of feedback control is for you to look back what has happened. So it's just to check the accuracy of what happened in the process. Like your model you draw up, the measurement of errors in the process or unmeasured disturbance is for you to analyze it, to take a corrective measure to prevent a future reoccurrence. But lastly, what is the purpose of this management control we are talking about? The importance of this is to explain the systematic efforts by business management to compare performance to determine the standard. You have to compare your performance, which is the actual basis, compared to your predetermined standard, plans, or objective, in order to determine whether performance is in line with the measurable or preservable objective set by the company or the organization at large. For us to achieve this, there's something known as budgetary control. There are basically 5 steps, which are highly mentioned here. First one is to establishment of standard. What do you mean by that? There must be a documented plan which must be approved by the management. It's part of those things that form the strategic plan. If you don't have a plan, when there is no law, there's no sin. When you have an effective documented plan, then you now, after doing that, so it gives you a picture what you will likely achieve in future. The next one is to measure your performance. You have a plan on ground. Whatever that transpires within the period, there must be track of records of those things. Having measured all those performances, the next one now is to compare both the standard laid down, documented plan, as against the actual performance that transpires within the period in question. You compare both, so definitely there might be a variance. So the variance can be favorable to the organization, it can be an adverse to the organization. So when it's favorable, at times you need to check, which is the fourth one. So when you identify a variance, either favorable variance or an adverse variance, which is unfavorable. The fourth one is to determine what is the cost of this favorable. At times, it's not every favorable variance that is positive to the organization. Let's say, for instance, you budgeted to have a 20 training program in a year. And you know rightfully that when you have a 20 training program, each training program will give you minimum of 2 million. So what you are talking about now is 40 million in a year in terms of revenue. And the cost of organizing this particular training, which may cost like 500,000, which means for every training program, you are planning to have a profit of 1.5 million naira, which means at the end of the year, you are planning to have 30 million naira as profit from your training program. But as you are now analyzing your cost perspective as regards to your plan, it shows that instead of having 20 training programs, you only had 7. From the cost perspective, it will be telling you that you budget to incur cost of 10 million, but at the end, you only incur 3.5 million. From your own perspective, it will be showing a positive variance. Instead of 10 million, we incur a cost of 3.5 million. From perspective of cost, it shows a favorable variance. For the organization as a whole, it's an adverse because instead of you to organize a 20 training program, you only organize 7. That means you have lost a profit of about 10.something million. So what's the purpose of doing this? When you determine the cost of this variance, the last one, that means for us to take a corrective actions if needed. How do we go about these variances? If a variance shows a positive, which means you are doing very well, The purpose now, once you identify that, is for you to now buckle up and capitalize on that. So it becomes your cash cow. Then you emphasize on that to get more profit. But if I show you an adverse, which is a negative one, you identify the causes of this adverse and you correct it for future reoccurrence. So in summary, in conclusion, every successful organization must have an effective organizational strategy. You must have a good strategy plan, an absolute control measure in place for you to achieve your long-term objective. Thank you for listening. Any question, Madam Amina?
Thank you very much, Mr. Nurudeen, for a wonderful presentation. Please, for questions and contributions, please.
Any question?
Okay, thank you. I can see, Mr. Nuru, we can see that no questions and contributions at the moment. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. We really appreciate you sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. Thank you very much once again. Yes. So in case anybody has question, you can kindly drop it on our platform, our social media platform. And you can follow us at ACCI Best Center. You can send a mail if you need a certificate for this webinar or any of our webinars you've attended. You can kindly send a mail to us at bestcenter@accinigeria.com. We'll be having our next webinar on Tuesday on negotiation principle. Mr. Chris Wani will be the one taking us for negotiation principle. We'd love to have you all in participation. Thank you very much.